the first step in my campaign is to just let people know that there actually is an election on June 2nd. It's a Democratic primary. Very few people are aware of it. And, by design. I mean, the administration has done everything they can to downplay it like it's not happening. And all their surrogates are doing that, too. In the media, for example. They're doing pretty much everything they can to just pretend it's not going to happen.
Have they tried to intimidate you at all? Because I would imagine you're not a very popular guy in Democratic circles right now.
Well, I've been involved in politics for a long, long time. And there really hasn't been any kind of repercussions. I mean, I said it, I think I wrote it on State Jersey, but certainly I've said it many times. If I was a current sitting mayor, there's no way I would be doing this because I would be concerned about retaliation against the town. But as a former mayor, especially when you consider that the fellow who's the mayor now basically ran on the other side against me, I'm not too concerned about that. And it's good because I wouldn't want to have to worry about that. But no, I don't think that there's been any real problem. I mean, I get some nasty glares, and occasionally Joe will veer off the word I want. There's a word I want. It escapes me now, but they have a very the machine strategy in dealing with me is very clear. I mean, I knew it already, and then I've actually had this confirmed by several people who I know who were, in the know on the Democratic machine. And the strategy is simple. Don't mention Carl Bergmanson's name. Don't acknowledge that he's running for office. If people ask you about Democratic primary, change the subject to the Republican primary. And if that doesn't work, bring up Chris Daggett or Shannon Wright,
Right.
Do whatever you can to obfuscate and take the discussion away from that, because the strategy is to pretend it's not happening. And it's so far been very effective. I mean, the Ledger barely covers the Democratic primary at all. And almost, I mean, really, they don't cover it at all. I mean, I could name and I could count on one hand the number of references that have been in the Star Ledger. The record's not much better. APP, maybe an occasional mention, but basically the strategy is working pretty well. I mean, as we get closer to the election, it's going to be hard for them to maintain that, but they've got to be pretty happy now that we're approaching 30 days.
What do you say to Democrats in your own party who put forth this argument as kind of like a reason to support Corzine one more time, that he inherited most of his problems? And a lot of the YouTube videos and early campaign stumps we've seen out of Corzine, that seems to be what one of his major themes is going to be. Don't look at me; it was Jim McGreevey and Christy Whitman.
Well, here's the thing. First of all, that's what he has to do. He has no record to run on. He has no promises that he's kept to run on. He has no popularity to run on. He has no substance to run on. Really, the only thing he has left to run on is to, whine that the situation was bad when he took over, and there's not much he can do about it, which, of course, is nonsense. I like to go back and look, and you can do it with Google now. You can go back and look at some of the press releases that were put out or some of the news stories that were out when he was running. And, he talked about all these problems. He talked about everything, and he said he had a solution for it. If he had run a campaign that said, hey, everything is wonderful and sweet and beautiful, and then he first of all, he would never would have elected because he would have to be on some serious drugs in order to say that. But if he'd run on that campaign, then you at least could say that he could come back and plead ignorance of the situation. But the reality is, he talked about a lot of these issues, and he made promises about a lot of these issues, and he broke promises about almost all of these issues. And so he can't then claim that he's inherited this. He is directly responsible, more than any other individual, more than Jim McGreevey, more than Christy Whitman, more than anyone in the Senate or the Assembly. He's responsible for the condition we are in more than any other individual in the state of New Jersey. Period. And when he complains, when he throws himself on the mercy of the court and says it's not his fault, the financial situation is very bad, that's That's like the Menendez brothers throwing themselves on the mercy of the judge because they're orphans.
Right. I like that. I might reuse that. Well, one of the things in, getting ready to talk to you tonight, I'm reading over your website and reading your platforms, I'm struck by how conservative your platform is, particularly on the fiscal issues. You're talking about a constitutional, amendment to fix the educational system in this state that, was brought on by the Abbott decision. You talk about ending COA. Reforming property taxes and cutting government departments 20% perhaps across the board.
Is it 8 to 20?
Is it 8 to 20? Okay, excuse me. My mistake. But nevertheless, substantial cuts. So the question I come back to as a conservative Republican is, why are you a Democrat?
I'm a Democrat for a million reasons.
I'm not suggesting that there aren't valid reasons. I'm just curious.
But let me correct you. I'm not correcting you. I'll point something out to you. I'm not correcting you. It's actually, I'm pointing something out to you. Jon Corzine promised to have, Jon Corzine's a Democrat, right? Or at least he pretends to be.
Right.
Jon Corzine campaigned on having a constitutional convention to reform property tax. You remember that's true. I mean, if you like, I can send you the references. But he also personally told me, face to face, that's what he was going to do. And he just backed out. He just completely broke that promise. So, I mean, it's not necessarily, it's not revolutionary for that to be a Democratic campaign issue. It was a Democratic campaign issue 4 years ago. The difference is I'll actually do it.
Right.
But, part of the problem is, Matt, the labels Democrat and Republican are really just labels for two syndicates, if you will, especially in New Jersey. There are two machines that really are little tiny, not so tiny, they're spoil systems. And they're really put together to loot the state treasury and steal money from the taxpayer in any way they possibly can, whether it's when they drive the roads, whether when they live in their house, whether when they buy soda, when it's basically it's like the song Tax Man. They take tax from you every way they possibly can. And they're always coming up with new, more inventive ways to do it, like the governor has. For example, now we have a sales tax on health spas. So that's a good thing to tax. We can tax health spas because we don't want people using health spas.
Right.
It's like, you can't make this stuff up. They tax every single thing, and these two syndicates are really not interested in what's best for the state of New Jersey or what's best for the taxpayers of the state of New Jersey or any of those things. They're both interested in making sure that they get their cut of the largesse, and the bigger the cut, the better. So I don't consider myself part of either of the two political machines that exist in the state of New Jersey. The Republican machine is not as giant and it's not as big. It's just that they're not as good at their jobs, which is looting the state. They're better at looting than democracy. We don't have democracy in the state of New Jersey right now. But if you believe in democracy, to me the natural party would be a Democrat. Unfortunately, the people who control what is called the Democratic machine don't believe in democracy. But that doesn't mean that I have to allow them, I have to cede the name to them.
No, I agree with you.
Is, I believe in democracy. I believe that the farther we've gotten away from having things controlled at a local level by local elected folks, the worse and more expensive things have got. The less efficient and more expensive things have got. I believe in democracy. I believe in being able to go and vote for my local mayor, my local council people, my local assembly people, and have an impact on my life. Not to see, it's not a red team versus blue team thing. It shouldn't be a red team versus blue team thing, and it certainly shouldn't be about looting the state treasury, which is what it's about now. We don't live in a democracy. We live in a plutocracy, which is fast becoming a kleptocracy.
No, I agree with you. We vote every year so that people in government can take our money and give it to somebody else to buy their vote. And I think that's what people don't realize.
Well, I think some people realize it and they're perfectly happy because it's their vote that's being bought. But that's not democracy. But there's no definition of democracy that fits